I nearly kept doing something the United States Department of Agriculture says is genuinely unsafe, and I'd bet you have too, reheating leftovers in a slow cooker. But my Instant Pot doesn't have that problem, and once I dug into why, it turned out to be a basic difference in how hot each appliance can actually get. That difference is why my Instant Pot can safely do 12 things my slow cooker never could, and I want to walk you through every one of them, starting with the one that surprised me most. Number 1. Reheating my dinner safely. Here's what the department actually says. Never reheat leftovers in a slow cooker. Full stop. When I first read that, I wanted to know why, and it comes down to time. Bacteria multiply fastest between 40 degrees and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, a range food safety experts call the danger zone, and a slow cooker heats too gradually to move already cooked food through that range quickly enough to stay safe. My Instant Pot doesn't have that problem. I turn on the sauté setting, or seal the lid and bring it to pressure, and my leftovers move through that temperature range in minutes instead of dragging through it slowly. If you're cooking for one like I am, you're probably reheating the same dish 2 or 3 nights in a row. This is the setting that makes that safe. Number 2. Cooking meat straight from frozen. I can't tell you how many times I've forgotten to move something from the freezer to the fridge in the morning, and by 4 in the afternoon I'm staring at a rock-solid chicken breast. The department confirms it's safe to cook frozen meat in an electric pressure cooker like my Instant Pot. No thawing required, though it takes roughly half again, as long as it would from fresh. My slow cooker is the opposite story. The same guidance says plainly, never put frozen meat or poultry into a slow cooker, because it can sit too long in that same danger zone before it ever gets hot enough to be safe. One appliance turns my forgotten chicken breast into dinner, the other one turns it into a real risk. Number 3. Browning and searing in the same pot. Every good stew or pot roast recipe wants you to brown the meat first, because that caramelized crust is where most of the flavor comes from. My slow cooker can't do this at all. It has one setting, low simmer, with no direct high heat, which is why I always used to end up dirtying a skillet before anything went into the crock. My Instant Pot has a built-in sauté function that gets hot enough to sear meat and soften onions right in the same pot I'm about to cook in. One appliance, one thing to wash, and I'm not lifting a hot, heavy skillet from the stove to the sink and back anymore. Number 4. Cooking dried beans without soaking them overnight. Dried beans are some of the cheapest protein in the grocery store, but I used to skip them because the classic method meant remembering to soak them the night before, and I never remembered. Under pressure, most dried beans go from bone dry to fully tender in 20 to 40 minutes, no soaking required, because the sealed pressure raises the cooking temperature well above what a simmering pot on the stove or a slow cooker can reach. A slow cooker can eventually soften dried beans too, but it needs hours, and there's one type of bean where that extra time creates a real problem. Number 5. Making raw kidney beans actually safe to eat. This is the one that stopped me cold. Extra time in a slow cooker isn't just slower here, it's genuinely risky. Dried kidney beans contain a natural toxin called phytohemagglutinin, and the Food and Drug Administration has documented cases where as few as 4 or 5 undercooked beans cause severe vomiting and stomach pain within a few hours. That toxin needs a full rolling boil, 212 degrees Fahrenheit, and the agency's own guidance calls for a solid 30 minutes at that temperature after soaking, to be sure every bean gets there. A slow cooker on low often only reaches around 167 degrees, which is exactly why food safety agencies specifically warn against cooking raw, dried kidney beans in one. My Instant Pot under pressure clears that 212-degree mark easily. If chili or a pot of beans from scratch is part of your regular cooking, always follow a tested recipe's soaking and cook time rather than guessing, and lean on the appliance that can actually reach the temperature this toxin needs. Number 6. Turning a cheap, tough cut of meat tender in under an hour. This is where the physics really shows up. Because my Instant Pot's lid locks and seals, the liquid inside can't boil away the normal way, so pressure builds and the boiling point of that liquid actually rises. Instant Pot's own numbers put its slow cook setting at around 200 to 210 degrees on the higher end, but under pressure, the same pot cooks well above that. That's enough extra heat to break down the tough connective tissue in a cut like chuck roast in around an hour, the kind of cut that would otherwise need most of a day in a slow cooker to turn fall-apart tender. Cooking for myself, that means I can buy the cheaper cut at the store without planning my whole day around it. Number 7. Culturing my own yogurt overnight. Live yogurt cultures need a steady temperature, somewhere around 110 to 115 degrees Fahrenheit, held for hours without swinging up or down. My slow cooker simply can't hit that low a number. Even on its lowest setting, a slow cooker typically runs somewhere between 170 and 280 degrees, hot enough to kill the very bacteria I'm trying to grow. My Instant Pot's yogurt setting is built specifically to hold that lower, gentler range for 6 to 12 hours. I pour in milk, add a spoonful of yogurt with live cultures, press the button, and go to bed. I wake up to a batch that costs a fraction of what the same amount would cost at the store. Number 8. Eggs that practically peel themselves. If you've ever fought with a fresh egg's shell sticking to the white in little pieces, this fixes it. Steaming eggs under pressure for about 5 minutes, then giving them a 5-minute rest and a 5-minute ice bath, loosens the shell away from the egg, in a way a slow simmering pot on the stove never quite managed for me. Total time is about 15 minutes, and the shells come off in 1 or 2 pieces instead of a dozen little bits. My slow cooker isn't built for this kind of quick, precise steam cooking at all. My hands aren't what they used to be, and that difference alone is worth it. That's 8 ways my Instant Pot is already doing something my slow cooker structurally cannot, and there are 4 more worth knowing. If cooking for yourself safely and without extra hassle matters to you the way it matters to me, subscribing means the next practical kitchen and home safety breakdown lands in your feed without you having to go looking for it. Alright, here's where the list gets genuinely practical for everyday cooking. Number 9. Turning bones and scraps into real broth in an afternoon. Good bone broth is supposed to turn gelatinous once it cools, which means it's actually pulled collagen out of the bones. In a slow cooker, that usually takes 12 hours or more, sometimes a full day or longer, and I never wanted to leave an appliance running that long while I was out. Under pressure, the same pot of bones, vegetable scraps, and water gets there in about 2 to 4 hours because the higher pressure cooking temperature pulls that collagen out much faster. Now I started after breakfast and I've got broth for soup by early afternoon. Number 10. Steaming vegetables in minutes instead of turning them to mush. Vegetables cooked low and slow for hours lose both texture and nutrients, which is exactly why most slow cooker recipes tell you to toss vegetables in near the very end instead of at the start. Under pressure, vegetables like broccoli, green beans, or asparagus go from raw to tender crisp in just a few minutes, keeping their color and a lot more of their nutrition intact. A side of vegetables used to feel like an extra pot for me to manage. Now it's a 5-minute add-on instead of its own project. Number 11. Cooking 2 parts of dinner at the same time in the same pot. This one still surprises me. I place my main dish in the bottom of the Instant Pot with its cooking liquid, set a trivet on top, and put rice or a vegetable in a separate heat-proof bowl on that trivet. Sealed under pressure, the steam cooks both at once, so my protein and my side finish together without dirtying a second pot or timing 2 things separately. My slow cooker's gentle open simmer doesn't generate that same driving steam, so this layered, 2 dishes at once trick isn't really something it can replicate. Cooking single portions the way I do, it means 1 pot, 1 cleanup, and dinner that's actually ready together. Number 12. Locking itself shut and shutting itself off the moment something's wrong. My Instant Pot's lid physically locks while there's pressure inside, and it won't release until that pressure has dropped to a safe level, no matter how impatient I get. Built-in sensors track the internal pressure and temperature the whole time, and if either one climbs outside a safe range, the unit cuts its own power instead of letting anything build further. My slow cooker doesn't have any of that. It's an open pot of scalding liquid sitting on my counter, unsupervised, for 6 or 8 hours at a stretch. My slow cooker still earns its place for the low, slow, walk-away meals it was built for. It was just never doing the same job as my Instant Pot, and now you know the 12 places in my kitchen, and probably yours, where that difference actually matters.